I highly recommend this book, Slot Car Dreams, especially if you're collecting slot cars or you remember the big 60s slot car boom, where, as we see on the cover of the book, there's a model car racing center. There were these commercial race centers, kind of like a bowling alley, where you'd go there and you could race your slot cars, of course, buy them there. And, look at all the bicycles parked out in front, all the kids probably waiting to get in, either to race on like a Saturday or maybe that was they had a big race. And these places would have these really huge commercial tracks that were just really, really cool, fun stuff. And you got to remember the period in the 60s, there weren't video games, there weren't remote control cars. So there wasn't a lot of things that simulated driving or racing. So the book tells part of that story. It's kind of a complicated story with a number of things coming together. But the majority of the book is alphabetically, it lists the producers of slot cars. First the American ones, and then some of the ones from overseas, and they even include South America. So this is AMT, probably well known for their model car kits, but they have some really wonderful slot cars, that a lot of collectors are looking for. Especially this one. This is used a little bit. I procured this last year locally, but it's like one of their promotional bodies on a really heavy brass frame, and these run exceptionally well. And all their products are laid out and how they developed them, and they made kits, they made cars that were, the term was ready to run, or RTR, and just kind of going through, showing you some examples. Classic is another one, very well known. They did have kits, but really well known for their ready-to-run cars. So the cars would be built up and ready to rock and roll, and that saved a young racer a lot of, trouble learning how to build them and sort of fiddle around with them. But that was a company really dedicated just to slot cars, so they came and went with the slot car boom. One of the most popular or most impressive cars to collect are Cox, and the whole story's there. All of their great products have these great photographs. This book is 320 pages long, and there's over 800 photographs. Every photograph is labeled with a figure number, and then there's a pretty thorough description of what you're looking at. Some of these Cox cars, they're just beautifully made. Magnesium parts and wheels and frames, and chromed engines is a distinctive trademark of all the Cox slot cars. Just really, really highly collectible stuff. Monogram was another one that made wonderful slot car products, like our Ford GT here. Now, this is a 32nd scale, and Monogram actually made race sets, home race sets with 32nd scale, and the little detailing, their cars look fantastic. All of the Monogram stuff is really, really top-notch and worked really, really well. The problem with a lot of the slot cars is you could come out with a really well-engineered car that ran really well. Well, in a couple of weeks, chances are someone came up with something better. And a lot of times that company that did something better was Ruskit, another slot car company only. That was their main product line, and some really, really wonderful, not only cars, but also components to make your own car or make your cars better. There's a section in the book on Japanese slot cars, and there's a pretty extensive list of the Japanese companies that made slot cars. Many of the Japanese model companies made slot cars. Many people don't know Tamiya made some really nice slot cars. And their problem was they were like a half a step behind in the technology. They made some really wonderful cars, but by the time they came out, the really lightweight bodies that some of the companies like Ruskit were using just from a competitive standpoint. The Tamiya's, like say, we're just kind of half a step behind, but really highly collectible today. And that's not all. There was a number of manufacturers that made super high quality components for racing, and that's all broken down by company, all the detail. You know, there's at least a decade of research going into this. And a big part was the slot car bodies you could get. And the Lancer bodies in particular were exceptionally well modeled, and they had a big selection of the then current race cars. In fact, they even sponsored a real race car in the Can-Am series in '66. So slot car racing was a big deal, and there was a lot to it. There's even a section on sort of mysteries and rumors of products, maybe something was advertised and whether or not it had gone into production. The one I'm most familiar with is the MPC Ram Chargers drag race car. There's a few pictures in magazines, and there's a question of whether that was something that was actually produced or not. So a number of those sort of, you know, what ifs are documented, what we know about them, and you know, how they were, you know, maybe advertised back in the day is a part of the book. The last part of the book comes to another interesting tangent of the slot car era, and that's actually pro slot car racers. Now, Car and Driver actually wrote an article, I think it was in '68, about the guys that were professional slot car racers. They actually made a living. Now, I'm sure there weren't many of them, and I'm sure it wasn't as lucrative as Car and Driver said, but that was a real thing, and they made their own cars and modified engines. There was a whole little culture that went through the end of the '60s into the '70s, and it's all well documented here, and there's even a portion that gets into some of the fun traveling stories, stuff like that. So this is really, the whole book is really wonderful documentation of that whole golden era of slot car racing. Now, they do not cover the HO cars because there's a number of books out on that, and they really don't get into the British scale extric because there's a number of books on that. That's all well documented. This is more on the commercial slot car tracks and the American home racing cars, the great products that were made in a short period and then sort of just like everything sort of stopped. Like I say, I highly recommend this book. It's really documents the products and the period pretty well. Great photographs, and most of the photographs in here are from cars that are in the Los Angeles Slot Car Museum. And if you Google that, if you're in the area or you're interested, I'm sure you could get a tour. I don't think they're open to the public like a regular museum. I have not been there. I'd love to go. And you might think, and you can order the book at electricdreams.com. I go in search, and I go in search on books. It'll show up with a couple other books. There's a couple different versions. Now, a hardcover like this is $130. So that price might seem a little shocking. There's a soft cover version. I believe it's $75. If that seems excessive, just wait until you can't order these anymore. And, whatever has been printed is sold out. Then that'll be one of those things. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I could have got it when, it was readily available. So I think it's worth the price. I got one right when they came out 3-4 years ago. And my whole thing on it, I know it was expensive. I don't feel cheated. I keep referring back to this book. It's just really a nice resource, and great photographs, and there's nothing else like it is the other thing. So I hope you enjoyed that. Give you a taste of what the book's about. You know, it's a little tome. Like I say, every now and then I got to refer back to it, and just there's a ton of work and research, and I think it's worth it just for the photographs. So let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.